worked for a large med device company where the rule was, you're an IT person, please don't call the business a business. You're the business too. Because of IT and legacy IT being order takers or being seen as always saying no, businesses tend to move on.
Wonderful. No, I truly believe this is a cultural shift, is a cultural change. On one hand, you have the IT, which tends to be relatively less business savvy, and the business side, which tends to be relatively less tech savvy. How do you truly bridge that gap?
When the business comes to us, we're no longer order takers. So we're going to understand the ask, understand the scope, and say, how can I add value to that? It's a very different world now, and the way we look at it is, the three A's: augment, automate, analyze.
Welcome, everyone, for yet another edition of Beyond the Metrics. And today we will be talking about IT leadership and how it is shaping the new future of the enterprise. Gone are the days where IT was like a back office or a support function. IT leaders are now strategic partners. They are driving decision making and enabling through digital channels. And to speak on that, I'm joined today with the pretty impressive, result-oriented Amit Singh. And Amit, welcome.
Hey, Gurvinder, thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Great. I know there's a lot of chatter around how the digital economy is changing the shape of things and the enterprises at large. You're on the ground. How does it feel on this transformation journey from IT leadership standpoint?
I mean, it's very different. Like you said, gone are the days of the back office. I think IT needs to completely transform to do work, and not just with all the craziness happening around AI right now, but just in general. We should not be order takers. We are here to add value to the business, and that's kind of the cornerstone of most of my teams and most of my career is like, how can we help the business move forward and get the value that they want or the results or outcome that they want? So it's a very different approach. And it's one where we need to be consultants more than developers, right? So,
Yeah, I do realize that, IT leadership is now more of a strategic value creator than just a service provider. IT teams are shaping the course of how business needs to run. And it's a path that organizations at different levels of maturity do take. But what are the obstacles that, with your experience, that you have seen that really comes through in these transformations?
yeah, no, that's a great point. Through my career, I worked for some really, really large enterprises, right? Well, the weirdest one was I had an HR partner who called me a zigzagger. So I was like, I don't know what zigzagger is. Like a zigzagger is you're changing your industry and your careers, but like what I've seen over time is there are certain obstacles that we face. One is legacy IT. So if we go into an organization where people have been there a long time, they've done incredible work, but that's all they know. So they don't know where the market is going or how we can really add value to the business. So there is that aspect of, hey, look, we have to change the culture in most IT teams to really look forward and add value and partner with the business. The second is the business themselves. And there was this one, I worked for a large med device company where the rule was, you're an IT person, please don't call the business a business. You're the business too. And that culture was very different, right? So, and the biggest learning we got from that is a lot because of IT and legacy IT being order takers or being seen as always saying no, businesses tend to move on. So if you think about it, if we don't do the work, you squeeze hard, it's going to come out from somewhere. They're going to do the work somewhere else. So that impact and that impression of IT being slow, saying no, has to also be changed with the business. And that's when they truly start to partner with you and believe in you. And so we have a framework I use with my teams that I can get into for that.
Wonderful. No, I truly believe this is a cultural shift, is a cultural change. On one hand, you have the IT, which tends to be less business savvy, and the business side, which tends to be relatively less tech savvy. How do you truly bridge that gap, right? And when you get to do that, and you overcome those obstacles, how do you make sure your voices are heard and your recommendations are really adopted?
Yeah, it's so think of it as IT leaders have to balance on a really high tightrope with this massive, balancing thing. And so you're walking this fine line. A lot of times you want to advise and guide the business, but that really can't come through until you really earn their trust, and that's very important. So like I was saying earlier, my teams follow. This is going to sound very cliched. I apologize for that in advance, but we follow a simple rule. It's called the three stepping stones. So step one is when the business comes to us, we're no longer order takers. So we're going to understand the ask, understand the scope, and say, how can I add value to that? Right. And so you're going to start to surprise and delight the project or the business team saying, hey, you asked us for X. I think we can do it really well if we do this, and we're going to add some value to that. So it's yes and instead of no but, right? The second step of that is once you do that, they trust you. They're going to come back to you again. So you tend to build this snowball of organic growth that keeps happening and keeps growing. And we're seeing that really well with your team. They partner with us really well, and it's the same path, right? Once we keep getting that back and we continue to add that value from the first step to the second step, the third step is you get a seat at the table. This is where you're now valued by a business partner. And it's an incredible feeling because they now trust you to guide them and consult with them. And that's when you can really, that tightrope it gets much lower to the ground, and you don't need to counterbalance it so wide. So those three steps I think are really important, and that's how all our teams work to partner with the business right now.
I absolutely agree that there is not just the tools that enable, it's the process culture, it's the people that see that shift, and you got to have that voice and build that trust with your business. Now, obviously, in the settings that you are most exposed to in the healthcare and medtech, the complexities are even more. On
Yeah.
one hand, you have wealth of data, but on the other hand, it's scrutinized, and you have to be compliant in many ways. How do you navigate some of those challenges within your setup?
Nah, that's the hard part about being in healthcare life sciences, right? The concept, and a lot of times we get pushback from, privacy and compliance, and you can't do that, or you can't do that, or you can't do that. Now, if you think about the business teams and you have ever asked them a question, what do you want and how do you want to do it? The answer almost always, especially if it's a data scientist, is I want all of it. I want all the data. I want everything. One of the things in one of the companies we did is we actually created this federated model where when a customer or a patient or a doctor, whoever signs up, we actually get their permission at that point. And now obviously our privacy policies change. So we try to do kind of like a state-like semantic, which tracks what did you sign up for, what can we do with your data, and so on. But what we also were really good at was making sure that when the data is used for any application or any research, that we stream only the data that is allowed. The second part, which gets even more complicated, is PII, PHI, especially in the medical space, right? And so we've been trained how to deal with that. But one of the places where we really wanted to use this for research, and if we looked at the people who gave us permission, they didn't have any. So how do you then say, hey, rather than going back to the business and saying, yeah, we can't do that, the right answer to us was, how do we creatively solve for that? So we came up with a streaming translator that de-identifies data on the fly and presents it to whoever needs it, keeping intact all, integrity in terms of the relationship of the data, but you can't trace it back. We couldn't trace it back, right? So there was no translation table at all. And every time you ran this process, it would de-identify on the fly again. So it's one creative way to get the business what they want, but it's also adding value to the business to allow them to do it and making sure that we check with privacy and compliance. A lot of times our teams are the stewards of that privacy and compliance and need to think about it before we even talk to them.
Yeah. And you're custodians of the applications and the tech stacks, right? Now, healthcare and digital health is getting very customer centric in every way that we can think, right? It's delivering to patients, it's delivering patient outcomes. So there is a massive role of unified data sets. There's a massive role of customer relationship management. You are at the center of CRM, e-commerce, and sales and marketing, and all kind of coming under that digital umbrella. It's a lot to consume in many ways, but let's for a minute start from CRM and really move into the digital ecosystem of the role, both from a tool standpoint, cultural standpoint, and a people standpoint.
Yeah, I think throughout my career, and I don't want to date how many years I've been working, but it's been a very long time. Uh, but it's always been fascinating. Where does technology and data, so where does digital and data get together? And I think the most advanced I've seen it was at a very large food company I worked at, where I've seen what they did in 2012. I still haven't seen in most companies now, right? They were that forward thinking about their CRM strategy. It is critical. I mean, it's a cliche, right? Data is the new gold, but new oil. But I think data is more important than anything else now, especially as we think about AI. Right. So we think about CRM and how we want to empower a field sales team or a marketing team. I think the problem that happens is people tend to build CRM solutions just based on what the users ask them for. And the problem with that is, well, the user may not know everything they need, right? It's very rare that you find a business partner who really knows it all. And there have been times, and even in my current company, I know a couple of people who really know what they want. But then you're hamstrung with what you have. And where is the future going, right? The idea should be we need to give somebody what they need at the point of time that they need it. And then we need to make sure that the communication they have with their customer, whether that's a patient or whether that's a doctor, is omni-channel. Well, if I gave you a message, let me follow up with an email. You come online, I can trace you back to what I gave you, what the online message should also replicate that. So now you're really enforcing the same message. But if we don't empower our teams to be able to do that with tools and technologies, then we missed it. Pretty much every company you go to, you're always left scratching your head. Is like, wait, how do we do this better? And in this world, in AI, we even question, do we really need a CRM, right? Can we have a system where you can just ask it a question and it gets you the answer? And so it's like, who should I meet today? Who are the top 10 people I need to meet today and why? And it should be able to tell you and say, all right, great, plot a route for me. Okay, keep driving distance in mind, set up my appointments, see who I can meet up with. Those agents need to help you do that. So you don't go to an old school CRM system where you're like, oh, I got to go run some reports and I put in, yeah, no, those days have gone. But none of it is possible without data. Data is key.
Absolutely, there is no AI without data. But related to that, since you've spoken about AI quite a bit already, and a good segue into that segment, which is how does the organization really prepare itself, especially given the medtech compliance? I know there's a lot of data, but again, you hit the compliance. And as the AI journey starts to move along, what are the outcomes business is expecting and how fast? And two, how prepared you are. And three, even if data is there and you're prepared, do touch upon how like governance is going to play a role in these
Yeah.
setups, right? So
Well, it's funny because in my current place as well, we're working very closely with our leadership team to talk just about these things, right? I'll talk about healthcare in general, right? They tend to use, advanced analytics or AI and ML more than others, and they tend to use it more to help them on the product side. So if you think about the product side, they were actually pushing the boundaries of what can be done with AI and ML and how it can help them. But now we're in a different age. Now, most healthcare companies will be a little shy of what can happen. You have to be careful, right? So if you inadvertently use a tool where somebody doesn't know that they're uploading confidential information into a public LLM, well, you're in trouble, right? Because it's now gone, right? So there's that again, it goes back to the balancing act, right? But it's a very different world now, and the way we look at it is, the three A's: augment, automate, analyze, right? So we feel there's a lot of value in augmenting our teams and our personas to be able to take advantage of these tools and technologies. So let's stick with CRM as an example. Like a CRM tool can really be useful for a field salesperson to augment their work, make them more effective, have them focus on the relationships they're building with their customers. We flip that to automate. Most companies have these processes, they have to be updated, they can be more efficient, but they use people. And I think there's a couple quotes about, how can well, if you don't use AI, you're going to get left behind. It's that simple. So we in healthcare have to think through what do we do and how do we do it. So what might initially have been, no, not going to happen. It needs to be, okay, how and how do we govern it? At the same time, we see our stakeholders and our business partners using a bunch of different tools or wanting to use a bunch of different tools. And we're like, no, 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 wait, hang on, you can't do that. So we want to take the time and effort to vet them, but we also don't want to slow them down when they want to experiment, right? So if you think of it like a rainbow or a bunch of circles, just be able to, just experiment. And as you get tighter and tighter, we need to govern it. So when you come down to enterprise applications or implementations of AI, that's when you want to lock it down. No, everything is internal to us. We use models that we trust. We use tools that we trust. But if you want to play around with some tools, we should. We should be able to, but just we have to be a little more careful, especially when it comes to healthcare.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it comes back to your point that there is that IT team who's your tech partner to the business, and for the business teams to know to the IT team what goals that they need to achieve and then kind of work together in parallel. So in that context, what collaboration strategies do you really have? How do you make sure there is a seat on the table for you, obviously yourself, but they have a seat on the table when it comes to technology
Yeah,
decisions,
no,
especially in a wider enterprise?
yeah, I think it has to be a two-way partnership. There's no other way it works, right? So if you think about, one of the basic fundamental things we've done in all three of my last companies, including the current one, is how do you create an AI council? And how do you ensure that you have everybody, right? You have to have legal, you have to have privacy. There are IP concerns. If I use an AI tool to build some code and build a really cool app, but who owns that IP? Do I own it? Does that company own it? So there's gray areas that we have to still figure out. But a well-rounded council that looks at a cross-functional team that is able to balance and build a process for how to engage quickly with anybody who's interested in a new tool or technology and how do we evaluate it. And it's not necessary to always say, okay, we look at that, and we look at that, and we look at that. If we have something, then that's our standard. And unless a new tool gives us some additional functionality or benefit, which we need to analyze, we need to think about it. But you can't keep up. In this day and age, you just can't keep up. There's some cooler and cooler tools and inventions coming out every single day. And so a lot of our time is spent on research, talking to companies like yours, and talking to our vendors and what is their roadmap. But at the same time, I do want to add on that business partners who know the product, who know their markets. We need to really listen to them and see how we can enable them rather than we don't want to be the tail wagging the dog ever, right? It's like, oh, you should do this. It's really cool. It's like, no, it goes back to what we started with. How do you add value to your business partner, to your stakeholder?
And I agree. I mean, it's so important to be aligned to the business. Otherwise, you'll probably build the most sleekest and have the best apps and the most awesome tool. But hey, there are no users for it because that's not how they operate. That's not how they're used to on the field. And I think we need to be respectful of that from an IT standpoint.
Gurvinder, I'll say this. I'm a huge car guy, right? So I would absolutely love a Ferrari every single day of my life. But at the same time, I have to balance that with what works for the general roads. And what will I be? I don't want to get a backache after 20 minutes at my age, right? So yes, we need the Ferrari. But you always start off in like, I'm a Honda guy, so I'm going to use Honda as a Civic to an Accord to an Acura, and then work your way up, right? It's just the pace of working your way up now is compressed, and the innovation and technology changes that we're going through, it's just incredible.
Yeah, a great analogy. That was wonderful. And to that collaboration setup, we did talk about a lot on the business side of and the commercial side with IT. There are other cross-functional teams, right? You have the legal, you have the finance teams, you have partners that you have to deal with as well in the mix. How do you then bring those teams and that collaboration together?
Yeah, so the most effective way is actually a very challenging way, right? So if within IT you think about different IT teams and them interacting directly with all these GNA functions or these business functions, it's going to be very hard, right? So the model that's worked for us in the last two or three companies is you have these business relationship managers. They partner as kind of like think of them as mini CIOs for those functions, right? So those people know the strategy. So I played that role in my past, and I absolutely loved it. So in this one company I was working at, that was my day job was running data and digital, and my secondary job, we were a very matrixed environment, was servicing a very large business team and all their IT needs, not just from my team, right? So I become their voice back to IT. That partnership of having somebody own that business relationship and keeping the business's needs in mind, partnering very well with a high functioning IT team is very important. And then the relationship has to have zero ego, right? Nobody owns the relationship. They know the strategy, we know the technology, and we have to work together. And that really snowballs into really doing what I like doing. So, which is if we do a great job, the only metric I have to judge a great job, we outsource ourselves, right? If the business needs to keep coming back and talking to us, that means we built the wrong systems and we built the wrong tool. Right? So,
This is great. Just on that, when you have these BRMs, you have the mini CIOs of their world. How do you really measure them? What is the criteria or KPIs on which you typically measure them? This is fantastic that from a world where IT organizations and individuals worked in silos, they are now literally integrated into the business ecosystems. Phenomenal. But
yeah.
what are the measurement criteria that we have in place there?
So look, the right way to measure it is the old school way of measuring it, right? Is like, did I deliver what I needed? Did I? Well, we don't allow that on our teams. It's not what you were asked to deliver. It's always that extra. Did you deliver that extra? Did you deliver value? Did you do it on time? Did you do it on budget? Now I'm going to park those aside and tell you what really matters to us. And again, if you think about those three stepping stones, if we are truly a partner, you come back to us with more work, with more new work, not rework. That means we did a bad job. More new work. That's the sign of success. The more you come back to us and trust us, that's the sign of success. The less the BRM has to be hands-on in delivery, that helps them out so they can truly focus on what's the roadmap, what's the strategy, how can we get ahead of it, what tools do we need. And so I think there's the old school metrics, which is, um, and then of course there's the ROI. Did we truly get the ROI that we said we would? At the current place I'm at, that's critical. We track it all the way through. But in some other places, they just don't. They just use it, create a project, and then they're like, all right, let's move on.
I always believed in that statement where good work is rewarded with more work.
Yeah,
And as long as you
absolutely.
can get to that KPI where you are constantly getting more work is a testimony that you have been performing to your KPIs in many ways.
No, absolutely. I think that's a great one. And I think it's tough, right? In this time of movement where everybody's saying, "Oh, AI is going to help." No, AI is going to augment our jobs. It's made me smarter than I was last week. I promise you that. Um, you know, but what I would also say is culture is very important for the team itself, and for us, that is a huge thing, right? We treat our team as family. We also are not shy about talking to each other, and it's a very flat org, right? The other thing, which is gonna sound really corny, but or scary, but our team culture works because we create hyper elastic multitaskers. That means these people can do more and more work without dropping any of those balls. Right? Now, that's a hard thing to do. So the only way to do that is if we keep you happy. The only way we're all going to stay happy is if we enjoy our work and we have fun doing it. And the more fun we're going to have is if we keep innovating. So every single person on the team has a goal of trying 3 or 4 POCs for innovation every year. If you don't do that, yeah, yeah, no, there's something wrong with you. You may not belong on our team, right? So, yeah.
Wonderful. I mean, keeping the view of the future and keeping the innovation agenda always on your agenda is very critical to the future of that. And that kind of comes to the question, where does the evolution of IT leadership really go? So if you really see the evolution from keeping the lights on all the time to the time now you're in a strategic conversation of a business really making commercial impact and outcomes to in healthcare setting patients in many ways, what does IT leadership really look forward to next? What's the next genesis of that leadership?
So I think it's interesting, and I've seen this happen in a few companies now where the IT leader is, you think about the old school IT, there was a CIO and the CTO. The CTO would report to the CIO. The CTO would be more like, end user computing or infra and ops and so on. That's changed. What I'm seeing more and more is that the leadership is run by somebody who is a chief technology officer for the enterprise. So yes, IT is a part of that, but all technology across the business also then works with this leader. That talks more to how we are strategically partnering with the business to drive outcomes, to drive value. That's the way this is going to evolve. And if anything, we think the ability for AI to augment our roles and help us do our work gives us more time to be aligned better with the business, to think more about the strategy and drive the strategy from business viewpoint. If I was just to say, hey, I need to build an IT roadmap, that's easy. We've all done that, right? We can just build a roadmap. We've done it in the past. All right, I'm going to replicate it. Now, what's unique to the place I'm working at? What are their needs and demands? What does the business want? What is the outcome they're looking for? Then how do we drive that? So it's all about pivoting to a co-leadership with the business for technology, rather than being the back office order takers that run systems.
Yeah. And how do you see this interesting change of a much more technical savvy business users, right? Now, business teams and people have a lot more in access. In many companies that I know they almost become citizen developers. I'm not saying that they pretty much have to develop everything that they need, but they have tools in their hands. Obviously, AI is changing the game as well. So when you look at from that perspective, that they are at times well informed, at the least on these tool sets, how does then IT cope up with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, you can have one of two reactions. You can say, no, 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 you can't do that, or you have to be open and say, all right, we got to embrace this and move forward. I'll give you an example. I was in this workshop, and I thought I was not bad at Excel. I can do some pretty amazing stuff at Excel, and so there was this ask, and they're like, oh yeah, this guy can help us out. He comes down, sits down, and he uses Copilot to do everything. Takes the Python code, sticks it in, and runs it. And I was like, wait, what just happened? Right. And so I started talking to him. He's like, so how'd you learn this? He's like, I don't know Python, but these tools help me build it. And it's a learning experience for me personally, but you learn something new every day. So I think we have to be open to learn from these people think of them as AI champions, right? Or think of them as probably the best person to partner with on the business side and empower them, right? Yes, we want to govern what they do, and we want to make sure that we don't do anything crazy like upload the wrong data set into the wrong tool. But at the same time, we have to embrace that. And it's going to happen more and more because like teams are getting tighter and smaller, and we don't have the capabilities anymore to keep up with everything we're being asked to do. So just embrace it, right? And partner with them to do it. And learn with them. We've gone through an AI journey at my current place and last few places. What I would say is we're always looking for partners. We're always looking for people to learn from. And companies like yours have the ability to work across companies, across industries. I think, if you think back to one of the questions you asked, which is how do we partner better with the business, or where does IT go forward? I think the biggest problem we have is we don't learn from other industries. Again, it goes back to the zigzagger. I've worked in a bunch of different industries, but we should learn from other industries. Yes, we need to have the healthcare, life sciences, blinders saying careful with the data. But if another industry is doing something better, think about digital, think about e-commerce. The reason it has to transform is because those kids have grown up ordering on Amazon. Now, if they become a dentist or a doctor and they come back and order something, that's the experience they want. Yet in the healthcare space, we're the furthest behind that experience. And so there's a lot of catching up we have to do, which is an opportunity. So I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, this is phenomenal. And I mean, looking back, I mean, how far have we come and how much more we need to travel, right? That's the real fun part of our own journeys. And I must say, it's been incredible talking on this topic, the whole evolution of the role of IT from where it was and where it is headed out. And I think the biggest role is of what you said as culture. Culture drives the organization, culture drives innovation, culture drives collaboration, culture drives working together, coming together for that common goal that you have for the organization. And I think that if is addressed and kept well within the organization, it fosters the new age enterprise that you're looking to build.
Absolutely, Gurvinder, you're spot on, and I see that a lot in your teams as well, and which is why we love partnering with them. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, it's been amazing, such a lovely conversation. And while we get to work with you on and off, this is fantastic to know a little more about how you have really seen through this evolution and transformation of IT leadership. So thank you very much for taking all the time.
absolutely, Gurvinder. Thank you for having me, and really appreciate you having me on.
Terrific. Thank you, Amit. Have a good one. Bye bye.
Thanks, you too. Bye.